When I was in the first grade, and after I was done doing the task Miss Janice gave us, I started reading a book. The teacher looked at me through her thick glasses. "What are you reading? Show me." I slowly pulled out the book from my lap. "You're reading Shakespeare's sonnets?" I'm sorry, miss." "When did you learn to read this?" "When I was 4. Shakespeare is my favorite poet, and Agatha Christie is my favorite author." Miss Janet looked really surprised. She and I had so much in common, and we got closer over time. One day she said, "Why don't I walk you home today, and I can have a little chat with your parents?" I led Miss Janice to my house, and to my horror, we walked straight into one of Mom and Dad's screaming matches. "How many times do I have to tell you the same thing? It's a ketchup stain. Stop lying to me. I know that was lipstick." "Mom, Dad, we have a visitor." The two stopped short and turned to look at us. "Hi, I just wanted to talk to you about Sarah. We want to put her in the Gifted Kids program and..." "Yeah, whatever. Anything you want me to sign before I leave?" And with that, he was out the door. I hated their fighting, but I was too happy to care for a change. He'd be back soon enough. But this time, he just didn't come back. Hi, my name is Sarah, and this is my story about how I made money being the babysitter of my own mother. Dad just disappeared, and he had even blocked our numbers. And Mom just became a depressed couch potato. I had to keep up with all my schoolwork and do all the house chores. At 14, I was already busy preparing for my SATs and applying to colleges. One day, when I was studying at home, I got a phone call that shook my world. Mom had been in a terrible car accident. I called Miss Janice and we rushed over to the hospital. The doctors told us that Mom had suffered a severe head injury and was still unconscious. A week later, Mom finally opened her eyes. The doctor came to check on her, saying everything seemed normal. When we asked her what her name was, she pouted. "It's Candice, duh." "And what day comes after Tuesday, Candice?" Mom flung a plastic cup at his forehead. "I don't know, poop face. I want my mommy." The doctor said he needed to do a brain scan. Mom kicked up such a fuss as the nurses took her away. The doctor made the most shocking discovery ever. Mom now had the brain of a 6-year-old. He said it was possible she might go back to normal, but it could also be a permanent condition. My mom had turned into an actual baby? My life just turned into a nightmare after that. I had to leave Mom at daycare before going to school. I could see all my college dreams slipping away as I dropped out of my SAT classes. I had enough on my plate right now with Mom and the housework, and boy, was she the brattiest 6-year-old ever. One day, when I just finished making dinner, I went to her room and found her busy pulling out everything from the cupboards and throwing it on the floor. "Oh my God, Mom, Candice, stop it. Who's gonna clean that up?" "Not me." And she ran out, cackling like a little witch. When I went downstairs, she was already at the dinner table. "Get your feet off the table, please." A minute later, I got hit by something on my face. Yuck. I hate broccoli. "I want Doritos." "Well, too bad. You have to eat your greens and..." "Can't hear you." And she stuck her finger in her ears and started shouting gibberish. "Fine. Put on your shoes and we'll go to the grocery store." As I paid at the store, I saw her looking at the Barbie dolls display. I told her we had to go, but she just looked stubbornly at me. "I want one." "No, let's go." What happened next is something I'll never forget. Her eyes filled with rage as she unleashed a scream that was shrill enough to wake up the dead. She knocked over the entire rack of Barbies and then she threw herself on the floor and started kicking and crying. Horrified, I apologized to the staff and quickly bought a doll. I couldn't get out of there faster. When we finally got home, she took one look at the Barbie and tossed it aside. "Nah, it's really ugly." And she skipped off to her room happily. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to see it was Miss Janice. The minute I saw her, I hugged her and started crying. "I can't do this. I can't be my mom's mom." I told her I wanted to sell Mom. I would just post it online, "Mom for sale." Miss Janice just laughed and hugged me tight. When I felt better, she said she'd found me a part-time job at the local library. I was so grateful to her. But soon enough, I discovered the worst thing about being an adult: paying bills every month. How was I going to pay for everything being a library assistant? That evening, I stopped at an ATM and withdrew the last $100 I had. I almost threw away the receipt without looking, when suddenly, I froze. I stared at my account balance. $13 billion. I looked around, half expecting a camera crew to pop up behind me and tell me this was a big fat joke. I ran back home and logged onto my computer to check again. Someone had anonymously sent me $13 billion. When Miss Janice came to visit me, I told her about the money. I asked her if I should tell the bank because it was clearly a mistake, right? No one sends someone $13 billion by mistake, love. Seems like you've got a mystery guardian angel. It's yours to enjoy. And enjoy it I did. The first thing I did was hire a chef, a maid, and a nanny for Mom. I'd now come home from school to a clean mom, folded laundry, a clean house, and fancy food on the table. I started my SAT classes and college applications again. I could go to any university now and take Mom and the nanny with me. One day, I walked into the lounge to find Mom watching Frozen for the millionth time. When she saw me, she ran over to me excitedly. I want to be Princess Elsa on my birthday. Look, I'll show you these birthday parties on YouTube. Looking at my mom's eager face, I just couldn't refuse. I hugged her and said she could have anything she wanted. I threw her a grand birthday party and invited the whole neighborhood. Mom made a special entrance in an actual carriage. She almost tripped on her flowing blue dress as she stepped out. I could see all our neighbors staring and snickering. Sometime later, I went to the bouncy castle to look for Mom and saw her in a corner crying, while the other kids shouted, "What are you doing here, you weirdo? You're a grown-up. You look so stupid and ugly." I just wanted to be Princess Elsa. I climbed onto the bouncy castle and snatched the tiara from the mean girl. No one talks to my mom like that. Come, Mom. We are going to cut the cake now. As Mom excitedly blew the candles, I made a silent wish too. Please, let Mom be normal again. When everyone had left, Miss Janice turned to me, smiling. You did a good thing for your mom. She looked really happy. You should sometimes be a kid and have fun too. She was right. When the weekend came around and my classmates invited me to a party, I didn't turn them down. Just as I was ready to head out, I found out that my babysitter had bailed on me. I didn't know what to do, so I decided to take Mom with me. My mom threw a tantrum the moment I arrived and wanted to go home. Everyone was staring and laughing at us. I grabbed my mom by the shoulders and yelled at her to shut up. She looked at me with tears in her eyes, and then she burst out crying. I felt sorry immediately and hugged her, and we went home. I had enough money to move out and settle down in another town where I could attend college. Miss Janice was sad that I was leaving. I bought a mansion that was especially made for toddlers and included all kinds of games. On my first day at college, Mom cried so hard and didn't want me to leave her with the nannies and the servants. But I put my hands around her face and kissed her forehead. You will be just fine, Mom. But I was wrong. 2 hours later, I got a phone call and knew that Mom had hit her head again. She was in a coma for 2 days. The doctor said that part of my mom's brain still thought she was an adult. That's why she was taking these risks, because she thought she was big enough. I just realized that leaving for college was still a bit too early. I spent my time at home and started writing. Writing was my only escape. I created my own blog, and it seems like people liked my stories. I was inspired by Agatha Christie's novels and wrote many detective stories. People were calling me the modern version of Agatha Christie. They believed my stories were too addictive, and I couldn't be happier. Until one day, I entered my mom's room and found her reading something, which didn't look like the children's storybooks I'd given her to read. What are you reading? Show me. She slowly pulled out the book from her lap. You're reading Shakespeare's sonnets? I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't. When did you learn to read this? I started before we moved out. Shakespeare is my favorite poet, and Agatha Christie is my favorite author. Was my mom a genius kid now? I knew how it felt to be a genius with neglected parents, and I just wanted to support Mom and help her improve her talent. But I didn't only want to help Mom. I thought all the kids around the world should have a chance too. I volunteered to build huge libraries around the world for gifted and all kinds of kids. I understood that education and science are more important than money. I had billions, but they couldn't bring me happiness. I have everything I love in books. And my mom? She was and still is my #1 fan. Also, I found out that my mystery benefactor was a rich man who'd caused Mom's accident. He felt so bad that he'd looked us up and sent me the billions. I'm really thankful for that man. Not for hitting my mom, of course, but for giving me this great opportunity to make a little change in this world.
Crime fanatic Friday, an author whose best-selling book led to his demise. In the southwest corner of Poland on a cold December day in 2000, 3 friends were casting when one of them noticed something floating by the shore. At first they thought it was a log, but as it drew closer they quickly discovered that it was a dead body. The police were called and the corpse was carefully removed from the water. A noose was around his neck and his hands were bound behind his back. The rope had once connected his hands to his neck, binding this man in a backward cradle. This position was excruciating as the slightest movement would have caused the noose to tighten further. A pathologist reported that this man had been starved before he was murdered and was still alive when he was dropped into the water. The victim was 35-year-old Darius Yaniszewski, who lived 60 miles from where his body was discovered. A major investigation was launched, but after 6 months and no leads, the case went cold. 3 years later, a detective picked up the case and was determined to solve it. He retraced Yaniszewski's last steps and found out that he had met up with a customer for business outside of the office but couldn't find out who it was. At one point, the detective realized that Yaniszewski's phone was never found. He knew that cell phones often bear a serial number from the manufacturer and soon found a match with the receipt obtained from Yaniszewski's wife. What he found next shocked everyone. Crime Fanatic Friday Part 2, an author whose best-selling book led to his demise. After the detective searched the serial number for the missing phone, he found that it had been sold on an internet auction site just 4 days after Yaniszewski disappeared. Investigators quickly found the seller to be 30-year-old Polish author Christian Bala. The detective checked Bala's background and discovered a recently published novel called Amok. This crime novel quickly became a bestseller in Poland. It was about a bored Polish intellectual who murders a female lover for no reason and conceals the act so well that he's never caught. When the detective read the book, he found many details about the murder in the novel eerily familiar. The method of the noose that was tied and the weapon that was sold on the internet website was similar to the phone being sold. This detail was never released to the public by police and was too extraordinary to be a coincidence. However, the detective knew that this alone wasn't enough evidence. The only thing tying Bala to the crime was the cell phone. When they searched his profile on the online auction, they made a curious discovery. He had looked for a book about strangulation and tying a noose. As they dug deeper, questioning people close to Bala, prosecutors believed the motive for killing was tied to jealousy. Bala had assumed that his estranged wife was having an affair with Yaniszewski. He was sentenced in 2007 and found guilty. He's serving a 25-year sentence.
I'm at asshole for not wanting custody of my kids. My wife and I are getting divorced and we have 2 kids together. They are a handful. We had kids super young. And I feel like I never got to live out my fun 20s, since we had them when I was 20 years old. My wife and I are getting a divorce because we both realized that this is not what we want anymore. I love my kids, but I do not want to be a dad right now. And my ex is such a good mom. I feel like I would do more damage than good if I had to take care of them right now in this state. I want to have some fun before I go back to being a dad. I told my ex what I was feeling and she told me that I needed to grow up and that I should have thought about that before we had kids. I obviously did not know that at the time, and it's too late now. My ex has already found a new guy and he treats our kids so much better than I could right now. I told her that I need some time to find myself and she told me if I do this then she'll make sure that I never see them again. And she also threw in some not so nice words about me and what I'm considering doing. So, I'm just wondering, am I the asshole for not wanting custody of my kids? And you guys can always send stories to me on my Instagram DM. Thank you.
Storytime about a catfish that went way too far. My coworker Ron was always looking for girls way above his league on dating apps and social media. If the girl didn't look like a supermodel, he wasn't interested. He would always complain that the girls he liked would never respond. To make matters worse, Ron isn't the best looking guy in the world and he'd been out of the dating scene for a few years. We told him to lower his standards and be more realistic, but he wouldn't budge. One of my other coworkers named Jason decided to give him what he wanted and made a fake Facebook profile pretending to be a beautiful girl named Bella. He set her location to Canada and messaged Ron. Ron took the bait and they began messaging back and forth for months. He would always talk about Bella and how he couldn't wait to go to Canada to meet her. He was looking at plane tickets and talking about how he's been saving up for this trip. I was starting to think that this joke was going too far, but I hadn't seen anything yet. Ron came to work one day distraught and said that Bella had gotten into a terrible car accident and is in a coma that she wasn't expected to come out of. He said Bella's sister messaged him last night and told him the news. I figured Jason must have gotten bored of catfishing Ron and this was his way of killing Bella off and being done with it. Little did I know that Jason had no intention of stopping anytime soon and this was just the beginning. Part 2 about a catfish that went way too far. Ron was sad for weeks about the news of Bella being in a coma, but said that Bella's sister had been cheering him up. One day, Ron came in and told me that he's developed feelings for Bella's sister and they've been talking every day since the accident. I couldn't believe that Jason was still catfishing this man, now as a whole new character. Ron was happy again and falling for Bella's sister and was now talking about going to Canada to visit her instead. About a month later, Ron came into work frazzled. He explained to me that Bella had miraculously come out of her coma, which was great, but he had since moved forward with her sister. He said that Bella found out they had been talking every day while she was in a coma. He further explained that the sisters are now fighting over him and he doesn't know what to do. Just then, Ron looked at his phone and turned as pale as a ghost. Bella's sister made a public post on Facebook with Ron tagged that read, "You think your boyfriend is so good? Look what he sent me when you were in a coma," with private photos of Ron attached. This whole thing had already gone too too far, but this was just taking it to another level. I finally spilled the beans and told him that it was Jason from electronics the whole time. Ron ran over there enraged and confronted Jason. They ended up fighting in the parking lot that same day, but somehow they're still friends and laugh about it.